Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar the Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Marcy? I think 16. Yeah. Yes, 16. Page 243. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 23rd day of July 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 5 entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. And we're on text 16 at the bottom of page 243. Jnanena tutara jnanam yeshang nashitam atmanaha tesham aditya bhagyanam prakashayati tatparam. Jnanena tutara jnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham aditya bhagyanam prakashayati tatparam. Jnanena tutara jnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham aditya bhagyanam prakashayati tatparam. Go ahead, Mercy. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham aditya bhangyanam prakashiyati tatpadam. Ace. Jnanena tu tadajnanam. No, she chanted. Try it right from the beginning. Ace. It's a little hard. Just to do agyanam. Yeah. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham aditya bhagyanam prakashiyati tatpadam. Go ahead, Jamal. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha yesham aditya bhagyanam prakashiyati tatpadam. You want to try? Go ahead. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham aditya bhagyanam prakashiyati tatpadam. Okay, I'll read the meaning, word meanings. You can just read along. Jnanena, by knowledge, tu, but, tat, that, agyanam, nescience, yesham, whose nashitam is destroyed, atmanaha, of the living entity, tesham, their, adityabat, like the rising sun, jnanam, knowledge, prakashiyati, discloses, tatpadam, Krishna consciousness. Translation. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. Purport. Those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered, but those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvam Jnana Plavena Jnanagni Sarvakarmani and Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham. Knowledge is always highly esteemed. And what is that knowledge? Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna, as is said in the 7th chapter, 19th verse, Bahonam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. After passing through many, many births, when one perfect in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him, as everything is revealed by the sun in the daytime. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously thinks himself God, he actually falls into the last snare of nescience. If a living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by nescience? Does God become bewildered by nescience? If so, then nescience, or Satan, is greater than God. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master, and under him learn what Krishna consciousness is. For Krishna consciousness will certainly drive away all nescience, as the sun drives away darkness. Even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not this body, but is transcendental to the body, he still may not be able to discriminate between the soul and the supersoul. However, he can know everything well if he cares to take shelter of the perfect bona fide Krishna conscious spiritual master. One can know God and one's relationship with God only when one actually meets a representative of God. A representative of God never claims that he is God, although he is paid all the respect ordinarily paid to God because he has knowledge of God. One has to learn the distinction between God and the living entity. Lord Sri Krishna therefore stated in the 2nd chapter, 2:12, that every living being is individual and that the Lord also is individual. They were all individuals in the past, they are individuals at present, and they will continue to be individuals in the future, even after liberation. At night we see everything as one in the darkness, but in the daytime, when the sun is up, we see everything in its real identity. Identity with individuality and spiritual life is real knowledge. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Okay. Jnanena tutara jnanam yesham nashinam atmana tesham aditya jnanam prakashyati tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So this chapter is called Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness. And as mentioned before, as I mentioned, and Srila Prabhupada mentions in this chapter, acquiring knowledge of the soul and the super soul and this world is the whole purpose of it is to inform our activities. Just like if you go to school, whether it's grade school, high school, college, or postgraduate, whatever, it's understood that as you learn things, the way in which you interact with other people in this world will change. You have a different view of things. I remember way back when, I grew up near New York on Long Island. I used to go in, as I grew older, go frequently and go into the museums. I got interested in fine art. There's all these nice museums in New York, you know. So I would go and look. I didn't really know anything, but I liked this painting, didn't like this painting. I remember Guernica. I don't know if you know that painting by Picasso, a very dramatic painting about the Spanish Civil War. And I knew that painting. And like, but then when I was in between high school and college, I said, I should really learn a little bit more about art if I'm going to, And so I got these books. And it told about some art history and showed you different techniques and different things that were in different fine art and what they meant and so forth. And so my vision of the art changed. And when I went to college, I went to Chicago University, so there was some nice museums there and so forth. And so when I looked at the same paintings, by painting from the same artist, I looked at it with different eyes, and it was a different experience because there was knowledge there. It's the most obvious this happens when we grow up. When we're children, our whole view of the world and ourselves is in a very elementary state. We may we grow up and we know our parents, maybe our brother and sister a little bit. Gradually your sphere of understanding and relationships change. And so as you grow older, your view of yourself, view of the world, your place in the world changes. So the idea in the Bhagavad Gita is that Krishna is speaking and he's trying to give us the most important knowledge, which is that who are we as spiritual beings eternally? All of our relationships in ordinary consciousness have to do with the particular body we inhabit, where we were born, what our socioeconomic condition is, all of these factors. But it's easy to see that those are changeable. Certainly our body is changeable, and it's certainly true that our economic may change, and so many things may change. They will change. And as we go through life, our views are changing, our understanding of our place in the world is changing. But who is it that doesn't change? What is it about ourselves that is eternal? Is there anything eternal? And that's the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita. Is that, because the whole thing is very dramatic. I don't know how familiar you are with Bhagavad Gita, but it takes place on a battlefield. The last place you would think of a nice spiritual discourse is a battlefield, But it takes place at a battlefield because, in a sense, we're all on a battlefield all the time. We have to fight just to live in this world, and there's so many threats, and therefore we have defenses. We try to live in a good neighborhood, whatever it is. But our bodies, our lives, there's what probably called a hard struggle for existence. To keep fed and clothed and all of the different things. It's a daily struggle. So that battlefield, Arjuna is fighting. He's on the side of virtue. His four brothers are called the Pandavas. And on the other side is sin and evil. They try to usurp the throne, which rightly belonged to the Pandavas, and especially Yudhishthira, the eldest. And they were for nefarious reasons, to exploit the people and so forth. So Krishna is on the side of good. He's with the Pandavas. And at the critical moment, Arjuna, who's the chief warrior on the side of Krishna, he has cold feet. He doesn't want to fight. The whole first chapter, he says, why should I fight? He sees on the other side his beloved teacher who taught him martial arts, and he sees the grandfather of all the clans who's beloved of everybody. And not only that, but he sees relatives and friends and people who he loves. He says, so what's the point of me fighting and killing them and winning this kingdom, which will just be soaked with their blood of the people I love? I'd rather go off to the forest and just become a beggar. This is what his conclusion is. But then he realizes Krishna, his beloved friend, who he knows is the supreme, is on the chariot. And so he's in a quandary. He's in a existential puzzle. What to do. His heart is telling him to leave and not fight. But his head and his higher self is telling him, I should fight. And so he's paralyzed, drops his bow. And he asks Krishna, now I'm not approaching him as a friend, because they were close friends. And friends, talk this way and that, and there's never any conclusion. But now he's approaching Krishna as his spiritual master or guru. I surrender to you. Please tell me for sure what is dharma, what in my best interest, and how can I achieve good, not only for myself, but for everyone else. This is his question. And so Krishna, he begins his instruction with 20 verses on the nature of the soul, and which is all important for all of us. This is who you really are. And he says to Arjuna, you're lamenting, you're speaking learned words. He was quoting from the Vedas and this and that to support his argument. You're quoting these learned words, but actually you're lamenting for something that's ultimately not lamentable, which is this material body. The idea is that in that chapter, he says the body that we have is like a suit of clothes. Ultimately it wears out and we get a new one. But nobody dies. Najayate mriyate vakadachan. The soul, the self, is never born, never dies, never grows old, never changes. Isn't that like good news? Then the problem is we're so much in the bodily concept and illusion that we're terrified of death, terrified of old age. So Krishna consciousness helps us to get off the bodily platform and to identify ourselves as real souls. Now this chapter is telling us how to act in that consciousness. Just understanding I'm a soul is not enough. I have to know how I can act, even in this material body, on the spiritual platform, so that I can disentangle myself from this material plane and not have to suffer repeated birth, old age, disease, and death, the wheel of samsara. You study the Vedas, you study the Vedic culture, Indian culture. This is a constant, is this desire to progress toward what they call mukti, or liberation, from the bondage of material life. And what is the alternative? Well, it's explained in the Bhagavad Gita, just really a hint is given. But in other literatures that we have, like Bhagavad Purana, they give a much more detailed description of the life beyond this material plane. Life that's eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. This word Satchidananda. I remember my first teacher was Satchidananda. Did you ever, Satchidananda Swami Satchidananda? This is back in the 60s and 70s, is prominent. He still has a place founded by him in Virginia. It's a whole yoga place, mostly hatha yoga like that. But Satchidananda is an important word. It means eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. Now, we'll just compare our present life. It's certainly not eternal, not in this body. We have some knowledge, but we have a whole lot of ignorance. And some of the things, as the great sage Mark Twain once said, is that it's not so much what we don't know that's the problem, but it's the things that we're sure of that really aren't true. In other words, being completely bewildered. If you know you don't know something, at least you can ask and inquire. But if you think you absolutely do know something and it's wrong, then you really have a problem. So that's our situation. So the whole point is to, this enlightenment, as we read here, when it's enlightened with knowledge, which in essence it reveals everything like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So this idea of enlightenment is, very, very cogent. So what is it that we need to know? First and foremost, that we are spirit souls, and this body we're in now is one chapter in a very long book. We don't know the chapters that come after. We certainly know the chapters that the future. But there are going to be chapters, and there is certainly a past. And as soon as we understand that we have never taken birth, then the next understanding is karma. Is the other, well, why do I have this situation I'm in now? Now, let's just be honest. Anyone who's sitting here in SanDiego has a certain amount of good karma in the background, compared to a whole lot of other people who are sitting in different parts of the world. And even, not just in SanDiego, but nice human bodies in SanDiego. It's a rare soul. But that's just a material thing. That can easily change, and we can be born in, a bad place next time. But the idea is that what we experience now is definitely affected by what we've done in previous life. It's so obvious. Even in this one life, we can experience it. We know that if we, if you grow up in a nice family with loving parents, and they feed you wholesome food, organic, whatever, and you have wholesome things in your life, then that's going to affect how you grow up. When you're 21, 22, you'll be in a much better state than someone who comes from a broken family. There's drug abuse, and everything. You're on the street sometimes. Obviously, that's going to affect you. So, in the course of our lives, the law of karma is working, and it works over time. The mechanism of transmigration is nicely explained in summary in the 15th chapter at the beginning, near the beginning. The whole point is that we have two bodies, really. We have the gross body, which is what we call the body, and we have the subtle body, our mind and our intelligence and our sense of self. This is called a manas, buddhi, and ahankar. And when the gross body dies, which it will eventually, the subtle body continues. And it's that subtle body, the mind, and all the thoughts and desires and things that we have, plus our karma, that determines our next body. Now, it's not just some impersonal mechanism. There are higher personalities. Everything is being done with intelligence. I mean, it's so obvious, but the modern philosophy of reductionism tries to take personality out of everything. It's just some automatic molecules and atoms moving around. But in every sphere, just look like you look at a garden, or you look at a place that's growing naturally. There's no human hand involved, say. I mean, you go out to the forest. But things are so happening in such an organized way. The trees are growing like, you look at in the way the tree, the roots and everything. It's all complex. It's not something just obviously just came about automatically. What to speak of our own bodies? Miracles of organization. How is it? I remember learning when I was a kid, 98.6, because I'd get the measles and everything. Oh, you have a fever. Oh my God, I have 101. Because we bring it down to 98.6. My mother would tell me, just that's the temperature. So you imagine what has to go on in your own body to keep that, you regulated, So the idea is that this was St. Thomas Aquinas had this, where that all of the argument from design, if you say the intelligent design, that's become like a sign that you're benighted, right? You're some kind of creationist. What do you think? Yeah, intelligent design. Just look around you. If you find a watch on the side of the sidewalk, did it just grow there? Did it happen automatically? Of course not. It was designed. Somebody dropped it, But the little piece of grass growing it is much more complicated. Why isn't there a design behind the grass if there's a design to be behind the watch? So the organization of this world should give us insight. It doesn't give us revelation, but it strongly implies that there's an intelligent design and therefore an intelligent designer. So understanding ourselves and that we are creations also. We have a background. We can say, okay, my parents, my father, the food I eat, what I breathe, all this goes into making who I am day to day. And so many influences change it. So we have causes, and that cause cannot be less than the effect. If we're persons, then we're caused by persons. Okay, parents and grandparents. You keep going on and on and on back. You're not going to come to monkeys. You're going to come to more and more persons till you come to the original person. And that original person is what we call God, or the uncaused person. And there's a verse in another book called the Brahma Samhita, which is the Song of Brahma. Brahma is said to be what the Greeks call the demiurge, the one who engineers the whole universe. Not actually God, but a very important deputy who's in charge of, creating all this, figuring it out, big intelligence. So he had a revelation, and he sang this Samhita, a song, and the first verse goes like this: Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Govinda Savakarana Karanam. A lot of information there. Notice the word Satchidananda is in there. So Ishvara means the controller, the supreme controller. Parama, Ishvara Parama, the supreme controller. We ourselves are all controllers in our little sphere. But we also have like bosses or teachers or parents that also control us. And there are higher controllers who are controlling the sun and the moon and the air and all of the waters. There's personalities, there's intelligence behind it. So you come to the supreme controller, and that's God, what we call God. So what does he say? Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna. Now what does Krishna mean? It means the all-attractive person, the one who has the most or infinite power and beauty and fame and strength and knowledge and detachment. Because someone who's really full in themselves, they are completely Atmarama also. But the wonderful thing about Krishna is that just like us, we can examine our own selves. Where would our lives be without relationship? We have to have someone to love and to interact with. So Krishna is the ultimate. He takes pleasure in interacting, in enjoying what we call rasa, the mellow of loving exchange. And that's what bhakti means. Bhakti yoga means linking up with God in this loving exchange which has no limit to its depth and its beauty and its fulfillment. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So here's Brahma, who meditated for thousands of years, and he got this revelation of Ishvara Parama Krishna. And then what kind of body does he have? Not like ours. Satchidananda Vigraha. Here's that word again. He has a Vigraha, a form composed of eternal knowledge and bliss. Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Unlike ours, which is very temporary. And Anadir Adi. He has no beginning. It's eternal. Our body has a beginning and an end. Adi, he's the beginning of all, Govinda. And he loves to enjoy in its supreme spiritual world as a cowherd boy. With the cows and the gopis and the flute song and all that idyllic world. Sarva Karana Karanam. Here's like St. Thomas Aquinas' thing again. The cause of all causes. This world is a string of cause, effect, cause, effect, cause. When you get to the uncaused cause, that's the Supreme Lord, that's Krishna. Sarva Karana, Karana means cause. Sarva Karana Karanam. Of all cause, he's the cause. So in that one verse, there's so much information. So the verse we studied today talks about how knowledge, when we become enlightened, these things become realized. There's what is called jnana, which is knowledge. Just like reading this Bhagavad Gita, you get knowledge. But vigyan is realized knowledge. It means that you actually see, you experience yourself to be spirit rather than just know that you're spirit. The difference between hearing about the glories of this certain kind of honey that's made with certain flowers and the bees in a certain place, you hear all about it, and then what's the next step? Let's try to taste some. That's the big yarn. Just hearing about it is not enough, But hearing about it is important because it creates interest and it creates faith. So that's what this Bhagavad Gita is giving us. In this chapter, Krishna is talking about, and he's going to start talking about in a few verses, we may not get it tonight, Brahma Nirvana. Nirvana is a well-known word. It became popularized by the Buddhists. And basically it means complete detachment from the material world. No more material activity. What is the definition Krishna gives in chapter 8 of karma? Activity that produces another material body. Karma is what Prabhupada would call fruit of activity, with yourself as the goal, with your self-aggrandizement. Bhakti is always activity for the benefit of others, beginning with Krishna. But when you realize that everyone is part and parcel of Krishna, then you want to help everyone to introduce them to Krishna. That's the greatest activity. You're not the beneficiary, but ultimately you benefit more than anything. Because by not performing fruitive activity, self-centered activity, you're paving your way to liberation. It's that, it's a science. I like to give the example. You've heard, forgive me, I keep giving the same example, but some of you have heard it before. How when I was a child, like many other children, in those days we had these chocolate kisses. Do they still have those? And so I don't remember, not being addicted to those chocolate kisses, like I was a chocolate kid, and then it was all chocolate sodas and chocolate, cookies, everything. I was really into chocolate, like 1,000,001 other people. So what happened there? I wasn't born a chocolate addict, but at a certain point my parents gave me some chocolate milk, and gradually I liked the taste, and I got a desire. When that chocolate came around, I'm right in the front line. So there's a certain desire planted in your heart by engaging in what we call sense gratification. It's what's brought us into this body, and what keeps us in the body if we just act that way. So that the Krishna consciousness, yes, there's monks' clothes, this whole idea. We try to withdraw from sense gratification, but we don't try to repress the senses. We try to use them. Just like if you're able to stay past 8:15, you see these curtains open, and we have these beautiful deities. I don't know if have either of you been to a temple before? Okay. You'll see our deities. Now they say, okay, those are nice statues. And in one sense, they're statues. But we don't worship them as statues. Because Krishna can appear through sound, just like he's appearing through these nice verses. And of course, the holy name, the Mahamantra. So he can also appear through the beautiful deity forms, Radha and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya and Jagannath. So we're using our eyes to see the Lord. We're singing, we're dancing, we're using our hands and feet. So those activities don't bind you here, those liberate you. That's the soul acting through the body for glorification of God, and the soul jubilates. This is spiritual activity. It's not sense gratification. It doesn't bind you here, it liberates you. So being trained in that activity and learning the philosophy underlying it is what Krishna consciousness is all about. Our spiritual master came from India. He didn't invent any of this. He's in a traditional line of realized spiritual masters who took the incredibly courageous step of leaving India. I mean, it's such a wonderful saga. He got the instruction when he was 1922. He was like 26 years old. He met his spiritual master in India, and he was, he had been raised as a Vaishnav, which is a worshipper of Vishnu. And it's interesting. His father was such a wonderful devotee. He would take in, sadhus who would be walking around and begging, even though some of them were kind of just, not so pure. But the sadhu was their profession, and they would beg. And he said, okay, I would be on the safe side. He took them all in, and he would give them food, and give them a little, comfort like that. So our spiritual master, as a child, he saw this happening. But he started to have a little jaundiced view of some of these sadhus. He would watch them, and then they go outside, they light up a cigarette, or something. All right. So then he's 26 years old. He's not in college anymore. He's got a new business. But his friend said, I met a really nice sadhu. Come and see him, And Prabhupada, he said, nah, I've seen enough sadhus. But he said, no, this is different. He's different. Okay. So he goes up to meet his spiritual master named Bhakti Siddhanta. And he was the real thing, very austere. And immediately, so Prabhupada offered obeisance, just like we did, they bow down traditionally. And before he even got up to, make himself comfortable, he said, why don't you're all intelligent young men, why don't you teach this Krishna consciousness all over the world? And Srila Prabhupada didn't know quite what to say. I haven't even met him yet, and he also... So anyway, eventually he became close to the spiritual master, and he got this instruction that, you should teach in English. So Srila Prabhupada had learned English, and he was quite facile with it. And so he took that to mean he should take Krishna consciousness out of India. This is another instruction from our founder, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as an incarnation. So Srila Prabhupada tried like anything to do it in India, to start something in English. But eventually he failed. And so he wrote some books at great effort. He was living in Vrindavan, had practically no money. He printed one book and then the second and a third. And when he had those 3 books, he said, now it's time to go to America. He was 68 years old. The health wasn't that great. And he had no money, but he had tremendous faith and determination. So he went to Bombay, and there was a lady there who was also a Vaishnava, harekrishna devotee, and she was running a steamship company, shipping. So she was quite wealthy. Have you heard this before? Yeah, exactly. So at first she said, Swamiji, I'm not giving you a ticket. She wanted a free ticket. Because you're just going to go there to die. You'll never be able to do anything. So Prabhupada just says, no. Yes. So he had a sit-in. He sat down on her step and he just chanted Hare Krishna for like hours and hours. And finally he said, okay, come in. I'll give you a free ticket. So he got the ticket, but he still needed so many other forms from the government. And Krishna arranged. He had a sponsor in India because one of his friends was a pious Vaishnava. And he had a son who had moved to Pennsylvania, and he was an engineer or something. So periodically, the father would meet some sadhu, and he would say, you think you might want to go to America? Okay. So he would write a letter to his son and say, you should sponsor him, fill out the government forms. He would do it, and they would never come. So when Prabhupada's name came, he said, okay, I'll do it. He'll never come. But Prabhupada was going to come. So you needed that to get out of India, so you wouldn't be a burden or something. So finally he had everything, because he didn't have any money. He had like 12 rupees, which is, 20 rupees, which is, at that time, it probably was about 8.5 cents a piece. Now it's less than a penny, so it's like a few dollars, So no money, barely no contacts. It didn't even have he wouldn't fly there. He's on this cargo ship. He never, he got sick. He had a couple of heart attacks. So he figured, if I had a third heart attack, I'll never make it. So he has this dream. Krishna appears in the dream. He says, don't worry, I'm taking charge of the ship, In fact, there's some paintings where Krishna is rowing the boat, So then the Atlantic, which is traditionally very stormy, very difficult, especially that time of year, is August, quieted down, like miraculously. In fact, the captain had his wife with him, and he joked, Swamiji, can you come back with us? We've never had such a peaceful crossing before, So that was like the first miracle, and it kept happening. So he gets to America, and he goes, where to go. So his host knew he was coming, when he was coming. They sent traveler's aid to get him on the right bus, So he goes to Pennsylvania. He stays there a couple of weeks. He stays in the Y, and then finally, well, I'm not doing much here. So he made his way to New York City, and he had one contact with a yoga instructor, Dr. Mishra. So he's basically a beggar going from place. And that, but Dr. Mishra was an impersonalist. And Prabhupada was on fire, he was ready to preach to his students, and he realized, oh no, I'm going to lose my students. So he wouldn't let Prabhupada preach. He wanted to just sing, to sing kirtan. So he had to do that, Anyway, eventually he makes his way downtown. I missed Prabhupada by a couple of years. I lived, 3 blocks from the first temple. But I was a few years late. He started in '66. I lived there in '68. I used to walk around Tompkins Square Park, the famous park. I lived there. But and I would see the Hare Krishnas coming down the street, and I was a flute player at that time, and I would, which was pretty far out, because that I was fascinated when I said, Krishna's playing the flute? Well, maybe I should learn. I swear, it was a whole thing. So anyway, he. And I would see the Hare Krishnas, what? Because I was looking for drummers. I was like a little jazz musician. And then I would hear that ching, ching, ching in the drum. And then I would look, it's just the Hare Krishnas. They don't want me to play, like that. So I was a million miles away. I was a total atheist and everything. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But Prabhupada, somehow or other, living on the Bowery, which is like, we have these homeless people. Imagine a place that's only homeless. It's like where anyone homeless in the United States at that time, in the 60s, would go to the Bowery. They wouldn't stay, So Prabhupada somehow lived with a friend in a Bowery loft, and started chanting. And eventually, he attracted a couple of musicians. Mukunda Maharaj became the leader. And he started 26 Second Avenue, and from there it took off, So what am I getting at is that this knowledge, when you realize it, and Prabhupada was fully realized, it's urgent. It means that this is the knowledge that can save people. Nothing else really can work, because you're dealing with the soul here. If you, I mean, there are so many people, and it's good work. You help to, cure people of diseases, you help to feed them, education, whatever. That's all good work. But ultimately, you're just treating the body, generally. And then, people die or something, the karma goes on, and they're still not liberated. But this knowledge and the practice that goes with it can actually free people from misery for eternity. So that's what Krishna is speaking about here. That it reveals everything as the sun lights up in the daytime. What is that everything? Who are we? Who is God? What is the relationship? What is this world? And how can we live in this? What can we do in order to realize these things and actually realize ourself, our real self? It's called Swarup Siddhi. There's this idea of, like this rupa. Rupa means form. But it's obvious this isn't our real form. Just in the time you've been sitting here, we've been getting older. So we have a new body already. Krishna says we've been experiencing reincarnation even in this body. We were all little children, right? We had a different body, different mind. Then we grew up, adolescent, so forth, Now a few of us are old timers, some of you, whatever. But it's constantly changing. So who's the real you? Was my 5-year-old being, was that really me? And the answer is no, none of them are. The you is the observer of all of that, the conscious being inside. So what is that? What is the sarup? What is the function? What is the actual nature of that living being? That we don't know. But we learn that in Krishna consciousness, by becoming conscious of Krishna and acting in relationship to Krishna, especially chanting his name. So that will give us real enlightenment and happiness and security in this world, which is otherwise unattainable. Okay, any questions on this particular verse? Comments? Okay. We have a little time, and so we can go on to the next verse. Text number 17. Tad buddhiyas tadatmanas tannishtas tatparayanaha gacchant apunadavrittim Jnananidutta kalmasha. Okay, so here's the benefit of the jnana, or knowledge, that Krishna is speaking of. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. Purport. The Supreme Transcendental Truth is Lord Krishna. The whole Bhagavad Gita centers around the declaration that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the version of all Vedic literature. Paratattva means the Supreme Reality, who is understood by the knowers of the Supreme as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the last word in the Absolute. There is nothing more than that. The Lord says in chapter 7, Mattak paratanang nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya. Which means, Krishna is saying, there is nothing superior to me, O Arjun. Impersonal Brahman is also supported by Krishna. This is from the 14th chapter, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Therefore, in all ways, Krishna is the Supreme Reality. One whose mind, intelligence, faith, and refuge are always in Krishna, or in other words, one who is fully in Krishna consciousness, is undoubtedly washed clean of all misgivings and is in perfect knowledge in everything concerning transcendence. A Krishna-conscious person can thoroughly understand that there is duality, simultaneous identity and individuality in Krishna, and equipped with such transcendental knowledge, one can make steady progress on the path of liberation. So one of the central principles of Krishna consciousness, or life in general, is that you become what you absorb your mind in. Just think of music. I mean, I remember when I grew up, in our household, there was no rock music. There was only classical and folk music. And that was basically it. So, then you become attracted. You become affected by that. And I wanted to play that kind of music. My father played the guitar. He tried to teach me the guitar. I couldn't learn how to play the guitar. I learned how to play the recorder. But the point is that your atmosphere, the modes of nature, the people that affects you. It affects your consciousness, and you become like that. Every parent knows that she has to be careful who she lets her kids associate with. Is that there's a bad element that can affect you and this and that. And that's just the nature of life. The mind is like a sponge. It gets affected by the environment. And you develop a certain personality, a certain mindset according to that. So if you are aware of the benefits of Krishna consciousness, then you try to become conscious of Krishna. It's as simple as that. Man mana, bhava bhakto. He says at the end of the 9th chapter, it's kind of a formula. Think of me, become my devotee, offer your homage up to me, worship me, surely you will come to me. The point is that if we take the discipline of chanting this mantra, both in kirtan, which is easy, the dance and everything, and also japa, which is a personal meditation, but it's not that hard, and we take the effort to really hear, then you're changing your mindset. You're becoming Krishna conscious. And that awakens the soul, because we are part and parcel of Krishna. We're little sample Krishnas. We have our personality, we have our form, we have our activities, eyes, ears, everything. We're made in the image of God. Isn't that in the Bible? And so we really discover who we are by becoming more Krishna conscious. It's not that we lose our real identity. We lose our false identity, called the ahankar, or the false sense of self. So this idea of mukti, I don't know if mukti was kind of a word, or moksha, that became popular in yoga. I learned that word before I heard about devotees. So what is that real mukti? Now, liberation has kind of a negative connotation. It's a liberation from something. Well, okay, what do we do after we get liberated? Liberation itself is not the final goal. So in the Bhagavad Purana, which is the kind of graduate book from this, there's a little phrase, mukti hitvanyata rupam swarupena vivastati. Now if you listen carefully, that's a rupa and swarupa. Mukti hitva anyata rupam means giving up all of these other rupas, other forms, which are this body and all of the changes of this body and many bodies we've had before. Those are not our swarup. Those are false rupas. So giving them up and being situated in one's swarup. Swarup is the form of the soul, which we never perceive for millions of years. But really it's there. That's who we really are. In other words, we have our eternal form in the spiritual world. As a gopi, as a cowherd boy, even maybe as a cow, but we're fully conscious. We're totally conscious. Everything there, the flower is more conscious than we are now in this body. There's no covering of matter. And everyone is playing their certain role. There has to be certain souls who are playing the roles of flowers, otherwise how is it going to be garlands? And those garlands are eternally fragrant, and they're alive. So that's our swarup. And when we learn that swarup and we live in that swarup and we act in it, then we're completely liberated, more than liberated. We're back. We're in our constitutional position. So discovering that and living in it and being aware of it at all moments, that's the end goal of Krishna consciousness. And we can achieve that even in this body. But the point is, it doesn't really matter as long as we move in the right direction. Because unlike material benefits or achievements that we may have in this lifetime, it's not all left behind. You may become a millionaire or a billionaire, right? And there's few people who do that in this life. But it's not going to help you. Our old friend Rockefeller, I forget which Rockefeller, a bunch of demons, right? The old oil clan, He died a year or two ago. He was over 100 years old, But what was it, making all that money and exploiting and, spending and running the, one of these think tanks who try to control the world, So what? Then what happens to that Rockefeller soul when it leaves that Rockefeller body? It goes to the bad place. There's bad births also. In other words, huh? Yeah, there's I hate to use this phrase, but there's hell to pay for all that exploitation and pain you cause, So the point is that no matter what you achieve or don't achieve in this life, you're leaving it all behind. But if we move toward Krishna consciousness, even a little bit, even just attending one Bhagavad Gita class or chanting one mantra, Hare Krishna, it's millions of times greater than most people are doing. And that's never lost. You leave this body, and that's in your spiritual bank account. That means that Huh? You know?
There's no loss or diminution on the path.
Yeah. You know Gita. Yeah, this is a verse from the second chapter. Neha bhikkamanashosti pratyabhayo nividyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Even a little bit, swalpa means sualpam, means very little bit, if you do, can protect you from the greatest danger, the most fearful danger, which is losing the human form of life. Here we are, there's this beautiful verse, we have time for it, yeah. Labdva sudurlabam idam boho sambhavante manushyama tatamanityamapiya dhira. Turnam yateta napateta namityayavat nikshe saya vishaya karasarva taksya. Ace, I think you know this one, right? Maybe not. You're looking it up? Okay. Just kidding. So this is a verse Prabhupada would often quote. It's a call to all of us. It says, having attained this very rare human form of life after many, many births, the only form of life in which you can achieve the ultimate goal, artadam. But like all forms of life, it's temporary. Therefore, don't waste any time. Be dhira, be thoughtful, self-controlled, and turnam yateta, quickly strive for the ultimate good, nikshayasa, which is liberation from birth and death, from the limitations of matter, reinstatement in your sarup, going back to Godhead for eternal life and bliss of knowledge. That's the ultimate good. But it takes work, it takes striving, you have to be fixed. Turnam yateta nabatedo namityayava, because death is following you. It may happen at any time. Don't waste any time. Because you have experienced all these varieties of sense gratification that are tempting you. You've already experienced them in previous lives. Don't waste your time. Don't deviate your intelligence. So this is a call to all of us. What is that? This is the final word. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasima jyotirgamaya, mrityuma amitam gamaya. This is say, ma means two things. It means don't stay in darkness, go to the light. Don't stay with the temporaries, go to the eternal. Don't stay in this world of death, go to the world of eternal life. So it's a call. I think every Hindu, don't you learn this from childhood? Right? Doesn't your mother tell you this with your mother's milk? Tamasi ma jyoti gamya. Along with yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bhavati. It's the verses from the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so we're going to adjourn now and get ready for our kirtan, if you'd like to stay. And after that, some prasadam. Free prasadam. You know about prasadam.
Yeah, I've never had it.
Well, you have some tonight. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.